Well, if you clicked on this video, then I suggest that you have the goal of actually becoming wealthy and then even steering yourself towards a multi-millionaire status. Felix Dennis was considered one of the most successful British publishers of all time, and as at the time that he passed in 2014, sadly, he was worth in excess of $750 million. And so in this video, we'll be looking at the 8 secrets that he actually shares in his book, How to Get Rich, and then how you can subsequently steer yourself towards the attainment of your financial goals. And so before we go into that, my name is Nana. I hold a master's degree in business finance. And on this channel, we discuss everything personal finance and personal development. Without further ado, we just move straight to the first point, and that is obsession actually beats talent. And so Felix actually believes that in order for any man to actually become successful in life, you need to be obsessed with becoming rich. And so one of the key things that we consider sometimes in life is obsession. And we measure it in terms of, morality. When I was growing up, thinking about money more often than not was considered extremely beyond reach for us, because anytime that you thought about money, people felt like becoming too money conscious would actually lead you subsequently into several social vices and all that. So we were actually stopped from having to focus so much on money. But here's the advice of Felix Dennis, the multi-millionaire. He says that in order for you to actually become rich in life, you need to focus on building wealth. And you don't need talent or skills or anything of the sort. All you have to do is to have a willing heart, and then more importantly, back that willing heart with actions, and then try as much as possible and then convince yourself beyond reasonable doubt that come what may, you'd still become successful. And so you need to level up in your obsession when it comes to the goals that you actually set insofar as becoming rich and becoming wealthy is concerned. This brings us to the second advice, and that is to avoid the safe path. So according to Felix Dennis, if you really want to become rich and successful in life, what you have to know is that you have to be risk-loving, in that you have to take on risk and then try as much as possible to leave your comfort zone. So what he actually goes on to prescribe is that you need to step out of the comfort zone that the school actually prescribes or teaches you to assume, in that you go through school thinking that you come out and then you'll be absorbed into, the employment sector, or someone would actually give you some form of employment, and then at the end of the month, you expect a paycheck. That consistent payment is what you're actually going to expect at the end of the month for several years till you retire. As opposed to this, what he actually goes on to prescribe is that you go out of your comfort zone and then start something on your own. That is by taking risk. It can actually be by you starting a side hustle or even starting a company. What he actually prescribes is that you try as much as possible to sit down and then assess your life, and then you have to diversify your streams of income. And that only comes by taking risk and doing the exact opposite of what the school system actually prescribes. This brings us to the third advice, and that is to own, not work for. So what he actually goes on to prescribe is that if you really trade time in exchange for money, that is one of the surest ways for you to actually lead yourself to poverty. As opposed to this, what you can do is to buy or assume assets which would produce some form of income in the nearest future, or actually ensure that you have enough coming in, as opposed to you having to lose money in the form of liabilities or any obligations that you may have in the near future. What that simply means is that you need to try as much as possible and then build other streams of income aside your 9 to 5. Don't always consistently expect a paycheck at the end of the month, because that is a very risky position for you to be in, according to Felix Dennis. And that is what actually inspired him to build one of the biggest publishing companies in the whole world, and then to even extend his empire from the UK to the US, and to attract all the success and the wealth that he actually amassed within his lifetime. This brings us to the fourth advice, and that is to avoid the naysayers. So according to Napoleon Hill, one of the key reasons why people do not actually become successful in life is because they do not exercise the power of autosuggestion. And he believes simply that the mind is made up of two parts. That is the subconscious part and then the conscious part. The subconscious part of your mind is the part of the mind that is responsible for your emotions and your feelings. And so anything that actually threatens your emotions or threatens your happiness is kicked against automatically by the subconscious mind. And so the only way to actually get things done, according to Napoleon Hill, is to power up the subconscious mind, and then to ensure that you convince yourself beyond reasonable doubt that come what may, you still steer yourself towards the attainment of those goals. And that also involves you telling yourself consistently, affirming your position that irrespective of whatever you may go through in life, or irrespective of whatever the naysayers may say, you consistently tell yourself that you have what it takes. And then even if you are to go through several other failures along the line, you still steer yourself, come what may, towards that pursuit and then subsequently the attainment of your goals. This brings us to the fifth advice, and that is to fail fast but learn faster. So according to Felix Dennis, one of the key ways to actually reach your destination when it comes to building wealth is to know that failure is not the opposite of success, but rather a composite of success. And so anything that you set your mind to actually achieve at the end of the day would come at a cost. So try as much as possible and then gather yourself together, build on that existing knowledge and the experience that you've gained through several failures, and then try as much as possible to steer yourself towards the attainment of your goals. He believes that if you're able to do this and to stay consistent throughout the way, you're likely going to build wealth and to sustain yourself and your family in the near future. This brings us to the sixth advice, and that is money loves speed. So according to Felix Dennis, one of the key reasons why people do not actually build wealth in the long run is simply because they are held back by either imposter syndrome or procrastination, in that they sit down and then try as much as possible to get everything perfected before actually moving on to get things executed. As opposed to this, what the ultra rich do, according to Felix Dennis, is that they launch all in and then adjust their sails in the course of the pursuit of their goals. So as they go on and as they build, they try as much as possible to find solutions to the problems that actually springs up. And that is one of the key reasons why they actually end up becoming extremely successful, and then other people do not really see any success in their lives. And so the key thing that you can actually take from this advice is to be decisive, because opportunities and time do not wait for any man. So what you can do is to seize those opportunities and then act in a timely manner, which also ensures that you take advantage of those opportunities and then take advantage of whatever resources that comes with those opportunities. This brings us to the seventh advice, and that is to be cheap. So one of the key reasons why people actually do not have anything left at the end of the month to invest or to save, according to Felix Dennis, is simply because they succumb to what is popularly known as the lifestyle creep, in that anytime that there is an income, they try to also increase their expenses. And that is one of the surest ways to actually lead yourself towards poverty. What you can do instead is to try as much as possible and then live below your means, and then invest or save the excess that is left at the end of the month. That would also ensure that you do not in any way find yourself in any economic turmoil that would eventually just strip you of any progress that you've made insofar as the pursuit and the subsequent attainment of your financial goals is concerned. This brings us to the eighth and the last advice, and that is to never give up. So according to Felix Dennis, one of the key reasons why people do not build wealth is simply because they give up too easily and they give up too early. One of the key things that you need to know when it comes to building wealth is that anytime that you set your mind to achieve anything great in life, it would come at a cost, and it comes also with time. Ask yourself the simple question: am I willing to stay along or to stay consistent by putting in all those inputs and all those efforts to ensure that I realize my goals at the end of the year? If you're able to do this, then surely you're going to build wealth and to sustain yourself and to hit those financial goals, and probably even steer yourself towards a multi-millionaire or a billionaire status. And so thank you for spending time with us, and see you in the next video.